Hi, I'm Gloria Brooks, founder of NatureGlo's eScience, offering online math enrichment known as Math Art and natural science online courses for kids ages 8 and up. Be sure to click the link in the description below and grab your free copy of my unit study planner, helping you create your next science unit study on the fly using the resource ideas I'm about to share with you in this video. So I invite you to click that thumbs up button and subscribe for more homeschool math and science goodness. Let's jump in. So every time I teach or facilitate homeschool science, either in person or online now, I do something I call every science resource, including the kitchen sink. So just picture in your mind your kitchen sink filled with your child's latest science experiment exploration. Maybe it has something to do with buoyancy, right? Or maybe they like to pour water in different size cups and ting them with a knife, So notice the emphasis on including the kitchen sink. And this is because when learning homeschool science outside of the curriculum box or using a curriculum alongside more child self-directed hands-on science learning opportunities, many times requires the use of a kitchen sink. Sometimes you may even find that the bathtub is even roomier and yet more spacious than the kitchen sink for a variety of more sciencey reasons related to water or other types of messy experiments. So reasons to use the kitchen sink or bathtub include cleaning up from science experiments to actually stopping up the water in both for a variety of experiments. So I could have entitled this video today, Every Science Resource, including the kitchen sink and bathtub. Anyway, I can see you wrinkling your nose right now and saying, what in the world does every science resource, including the kitchen sink, even mean? Now, let me tell you a story. Way back in 2007, when I taught upper elementary science in private school, I visited a number of alternative schools, such as Sudbury and free schools. And I was living near the Newark, Delaware area at the time. So I began following their example and transformed my classroom into a learning resource center for my students. And I discovered and realized through seeing those schools' Uber learning resources in their learning centers, not called classrooms, the necessity of children having access to tons of engaging, stimulating, hands-on learning resources, especially for science. Now, I'm not talking about the kind of pricey homeschool science resources that you order from curriculum companies or even those cheap plastic science kits that you can buy at stores or order online. I'm talking about getting big time science resources that kids know adults use. So what do I mean by this? According to Dr. Peter Gray, famed for his scholarly studies with childhood education and play, he says that children naturally want to master the adult tools of today. So therefore, giving children access to adult tools such as microscopes, rocks and minerals collections, living books, quality binoculars for bird watching, etc., all of these kinds of science resources are engaging and stimulating for children because they know innately that it will help prepare them for the adult world. Now, don't get me wrong, kids love to play with toys too, as you know, and there's nothing wrong with that. Toys help children enter the make-pretend world, and many times they're imitating adults. Legos are brilliant toys for use with all kinds of science learning and also math. Additionally, by giving kids access to quality adult science equipment and resources next to their favorite toys will really surprise you on how kids will take aim and carefully master using those resources naturally. And yeah, sometimes, they may end up breaking those resources. And I'm going to share my secret on what I do related to that. So now you may be wondering, so how in the world am I ever going to afford to get my kids real adult science equipment? So I'll tell you in just a moment. Secret number one, Do science unit studies to inspire real learning. Plus, this saves you time. Back in 2007, I also began implementing unit studies into our science studies. Since my students and I were already super excited about our science topics, and it saved us tons of time. And I integrated math, which became my new favorite science connection, reading, writing, creative writing, history, geography connections, and more into our already excited science learning. Now, for homeschool science, you have the luxury of following your particular child's science learning interests. Use this as a springboard for naturally bringing in other subjects related to their favorite science topic, including maps for geography related to whatever their science topic is, living books for language arts to inspire creative writing, history related to their topic, and math. Now, there's always math, so easily found, like hidden treasure inside of any science topic that your child could possibly be interested in. Secret number 2. Here comes the big one on how to acquire, these really great high quality science resources. Borrow or buy used science equipment. So here's how you find affordable adult science equipment. Are you ready? I think you already could tell just from that headline I just shared. So every weekend, I was at local or out of town yard sales, garage sales, flea markets, thrift stores, and used bookstores. I even did weekly rounds at thrift stores to make sure that I harvested all the latest and best science and math resources that I could find. So I can hear you saying, oh, shucks, I knew that. You might already even be doing that. So you name it. I was piling up the back seat and trunk of my blue Nissan Altima with math and science resources and living books at that savory time for my very large classroom. It was such an enjoyable luxury to facilitate, rather than lecturing to my students, science learning for up to 15 kids at a time in this massively huge classroom. It was so great. Unfortunately, I did not get to take that very large classroom with me to the next school that I taught at. Did I ever miss that classroom? When 2 years later, I wound up in an unfortunately tiny shared church basement classroom. But that's a story for another day. So in the heyday of my epiphany that kids need authentic, high quality, hands-on learning science resources and lots of variety, I learned to listen to my students about what they were interested in using, and then finding those resources affordably to fulfill their interest in science and math. And as you can guess, this took time. It took me, a few years to really gather these resources. I ended up filling up my classroom's bookcases, 2 closets, and a gigantic dresser full of resources. This is giant, like rectangular thing on wheels, and it had these giant drawers that I could pull out, and I just filled them right up. It was like 20 drawers. Additionally, I filled up my spare apartment bedroom with 4 more bookcases and crates upon crates of more science equipment I couldn't fit into my classroom, learning center. So in between classes and the dreaded school bells, I would scamper around my classroom, hurriedly changing out the resources that applied to the next group's lesson. So too bad I had to march to the typical drum of switching class periods and not just keep the same students all day with the same resources. So I learned to move like lightning in between classes. So I would set up learning stations around the room by pulling together individual student desks into large tables and then placing all the science resources, including games, experiment or project materials, living books, on top of those desks, which became tables. So what are living science books? Let's explain that here. So first of all, if you're familiar with Charlotte Mason living books, you'll know what that means. So just in case you don't know, living science books are books written by an author that is passionate about a subject. Now, the author oftentimes will write in a conversational manner or a story-like manner and include facts in a very stimulating, interesting way. And this is very unlike textbooks, science textbooks, which typically present information in a dry, formal, factory-like fashion. My colleagues thought I was a bit weird when they'd see me jumping about my classroom, scurrying about, rushing around, setting up the next class's hands-on science resources. Whether it was changing out gears and pulleys for paints, for creating solar system posters, or laying out magnets or chemistry supplies, I was on the move. But this every science resource, including the kitchen sink and the bathtub resource setup, works amazingly, especially in a home learning environment. It's totally worth it for exciting children to want to learn science in a way that's engaging and very stimulating. And another thing that unschoolers will do is to strew or lay out different new science equipment that you have and let them figure out how to use it. That's a really hot tip from John Holt, who is the reintroducer of the unschool methodology to the Western world in the 60s and 70s. Thank goodness for his wisdom. So my class has actually made a lot of noise with enthusiastic hands-on engagement, experiments, and students interacting with each other instead of sitting at their desks with their noses in a textbook, listening to me lecture hour after hour. During those 2 years, we were fortunate to occupy an end corner classroom of the school where we didn't bother other classes, thankfully. So in my next video, I'm going to share in more detail about how all this works with every resource, including the kitchen sink and bathtub. So you might want to click around this video here now that we're near the end, or just keep a look at it. Ding that little bell next to the subscribe button. If you haven't done so already, give me a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and you'll be the first to hear when I come out with my next homeschool math and science video, helping your homeschool liberate yourself from math and science drudgery. Also, click the link in the description and you'll get a free unit study planner helping you to plan out and use the resources that I just shared with you today. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video. Go ahead and click that next video that comes on the screen here. Thank you.